Today we're going to talk about criminal law versus civil law, criminal cases versus criminal cases. One of the questions I get a lot are, what's the difference between a criminal case and a civil case? You hear it in the news, you hear it in the media, you see it on TV, you hear it on the radio. Basically, those are the two main different cases that you hear about every day. Those are the two main different types of law. A criminal case is a case that is prosecuted by a government entity. We're talking about either the state or federal government is prosecuting someone. And they're saying, you violated this law, you violated this statute, and we're going to punish you. And typically that punishment is going to be in the form of, incarceration, jail, or fines, or probation, or some combination of the three. A civil case, on the other hand, is one individual or one business suing another individual or another business and saying, hey, look, you caused me harm, you did this, and you shouldn't have. You breached a contract, you were negligent, you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and whatever it is you're doing is causing me harm, and I either A, want you to pay me damages or money for the harm that you're causing, or B, stop doing it. Typically the stop doing it is referred to as an injunction. So that, again, is the difference between criminal law and civil law. Criminal case, government entity prosecuting someone. Hey, look, you robbed somebody, you stole, you drove while you were intoxicated, and we're going to punish you for doing that. And depending on the circumstances, depending on your record, we're going to put you in jail, or we're going to give you a fine or probation. Whereas a civil case is saying, hey, look, you stole from me, so now you have to pay me back for what it is you took. Or you assaulted me and you beat me up, and now you have to pay me for the damages that you caused, whether those damages were physical or emotional. Or I had a contract with you and you breached that contract, and now you need to pay me for that contract, or you need to pay me for the damage that was caused by you not fulfilling that contract. And that's the difference between civil law and criminal law. Now,
that short little video was just an attorney explaining the difference between criminal and civil law, but now let's kind of break it down a little bit. When we look at criminal law, okay, first of all, we are dealing with people who behave in a way that's prohibited by society. And we're familiar with this type of law. The idea of you can't rob somebody, you can't burglarize a house, you can't just steal something that was left out, you can't assault somebody, obviously you can't murder anybody. So these are the types of things, the types of behaviors that we're talking about. And when you violate a criminal law, some of the possible punishments include death at the most extreme, prison, probation, in which you're under the court's supervision even while you are released back into the public, fines, house arrest, community service, and there are other potential punishments. But the idea is it is punishment. That's what we're looking at with criminal law. Now, with civil law, we're dealing with disputes among individuals, and so we're not really concerned with the government punishing somebody, but yet we're just trying to solve some issue that's come up. It's a lawsuit, to make it simpler, and someone was injured in a car accident, and because of that they suffered injuries that led to medical bills. They had their car damaged, which needed repaired. They missed work, so they lost wages. And so they sued the person who caused the accident in order to get repaid because of that. And we call that a remedy. And that's the result of a civil lawsuit. Okay, oftentimes it is a cash award of some sort to make you whole again. That's the whole idea of a lawsuit normally, is to put you back where you were before the incident occurred, as much as is possible. But it doesn't have to be a cash award. Remedies can be different. For example, if someone is fired unfairly, unjustly, they could sue to get their job back, and that could be part of the remedy, a rehiring after being unjustly fired. And so that's the difference between the two. In criminal law, you have the government prosecuting someone accused of a crime, and there is a possible punishment at the end. Okay, in civil law, it's individuals, private individuals, suing private individuals or businesses with the idea of some sort of remedy to make the other person whole, and that depends upon what the lawsuit entails. But the question becomes, can one act be both a crime and something for which the accused may be sued in a civil court. In other words, two incidents. And one pretty simple case would be an assault. Somebody punches somebody else, and that leads to injury. And so obviously you can't do that in a criminal sense. You could be charged with simple assault or aggravated assault. And also, if some sort of injuries or damages are suffered, then the victim can sue the person who assaulted them in a civil court. Okay, and one of the most famous cases in American history is a good example of this, and it's much more serious than an assault. It was the O.J. Simpson case, which took place in the mid-90s. And for those of you who don't know, O.J. Simpson was a Hall of Fame NFL running back. Prior to entering the NFL, he was a Heisman Trophy winner at USC. And after his football career was over, he was an actor, he was a football announcer, and that all kind of came to a crashing halt in 1994 when he was arrested for the murder of his wife, or former wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ron Goldman. And this murder took place at Nicole Brown Simpson's townhouse, and it was a grisly murder in which both victims had their throats slit. And at first, as the police investigated the murder, Simpson was not a suspect because it seemed like he had an alibi. He had flown to Chicago the night of the murder, and supposedly the timing didn't work out where he could not have committed the murder. But then witnesses came forth and basically helped the police establish that Simpson could be in the area at the time of the murder. And once it was obvious he was a suspect, infamous slow-speed chase on a Los Angeles freeway in which Simpson was driven by his friend in a white Ford Bronco as 20 to 30 police cars followed him slowly as he tried to escape before being basically intercepted. And this was infamous because it was shown on live TV, national TV. The networks broke into the NBA Finals, in fact, to show this slow-speed chase. And finally, Simpson gave up and was arrested. Okay, and then it became one of those trials of the century. And 8 months worth of a trial, in fact, one of the longest trials in U.S. history, which made celebrities of the lawyers and the judge in the case and even some of the witnesses. There were some famous moments. One of the key pieces of prosecution's evidence was a bloody glove found at the crime scene that supposedly was Simpson's, and they asked him to try on the glove during the trial, and when it didn't fit, Simpson's attorney Johnny Cochran included that in his closing argument and said, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. So it was really a wild case that went on for months, and there's actually another video attached within this lesson if you want to get a little bit more of a background on the case. But in the end, the point is Simpson was charged and put on trial, and in the criminal case, he was found not guilty. So in that situation, because of the Fifth Amendment protection from double jeopardy, it meant that he could never be tried for those murders again. So he was found not guilty in a criminal court. He would never be punished for those murders. However, the families of the victims sued Simpson in a civil case, claiming that he was responsible for the deaths of his ex-wife and her friend. And in the civil case, the jury came to a decision that Simpson was responsible for the deaths. In other words, he did it. So you had the criminal jury said not guilty, while the civil jury said that Simpson was actually responsible for the murders. So that kind of brings us to the question of how can that happen? How can you have two separate juries look at the same facts and come to a different conclusion? And it's not that they came to a different conclusion in the end. It's all about the different burdens of proof required in criminal versus civil cases. In a criminal case, the burden of proof is higher. In our justice system, we have this concept of innocent until proven guilty. And the burden of proof in a criminal case is called guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And basically this means that the government has to prove guilt to the extent that no reasonable person could doubt that the accused is guilty. And that's a tough standard to meet. And Simpson's lawyers during the criminal trial were able to poke enough holes in the case to create that doubt. Many of the jurors were questioned later after the end of the criminal case, and one of them even said, like, yeah, we think he did it, but we don't think that it was proven beyond a reasonable doubt, and so based on that we couldn't vote guilty, and so he was found not guilty in a criminal court. But then in the civil case, the standard of proof or the burden of proof is lower. In a civil case, it's called preponderance of evidence. And all that means is that the winners decide that produces the greater weight of convincing and accurate evidence. In other words, which side do you believe more? And so in that situation, the civil jury felt there was more than enough proof that Simpson had indeed committed the murders. And so that's how you can have a split decision, such as we did in the O.J. Simpson case. But again, remember the results. In the criminal case, that the potential result for Simpson, if he would have been found guilty, would have been a lengthy prison sentence. Whereas in the civil case, when he was found responsible, it was nearly a monetary award, a remedy to the families of actually $8.5 million. But nonetheless, his freedom was not at stake. And so that's kind of why we make it more difficult to convict someone in a criminal case than it is to win a civil lawsuit, because of the stakes. Money isn't seen as important as freedom. Okay, and so that's the difference between criminal and civil law. And we'll reference these types of cases throughout the course, but feel free if you need to come back and reference this later in the course.